Hello again, and welcome back to Lost in Translation. My name is Nico, and this week we are taking a look at the Torah portion, Bishalach, and my top 10 list of what you will miss if you only read the portion in English. All right, so first of all, number one, Red Sea. Okay, here we go. So God led the people around by way of the desert to the Red Sea. I really don't know why, especially in a Jewish translation, we still end up with Red Sea when the Hebrew is so not Red Sea. It's Yam Suf. It's the Sea of Reeds. Reeds. It's nothing to do with Adon, which is red. There's no way to confuse the two here. So, I did a little research. It's a very old translation. We see it in the original Greek translation of the Torah. We see it used by Greek by Jewish writers like Philo and uh, and Josephus, Flavius, these kind of characters. But the truth is that it has nothing to do with the Red Sea, the body of water that we know of that's between Egypt and the Arabian Peninsula. And furthermore, we need to forget the idea of geography in connection to things being taught in Torah. Okay, there are some things, there are some connections between the stories and the places in Torah and actual geographical locations, but it's not the real message of the Torah. It's offering us some sort of it's offering us some sort of proof that there may have been a historical truth to these stories, but at the same time, we always should be concentrating on the internality. What is this sea of reeds inside me? What is it to have such an immense miracle that the waters part and the Hebrews cross on dry land. The children of Israel that they cross the sea on dry land. This is such a much more important thing to concentrate on than anything about geography. Um, so yes, let's take a closer look at that. Okay, so again, looking closer at place names. Number two, between Pi Hachirot and Migdol. Okay, so we're getting more detail about where the children of Israel are right before the miracle of the parting of the sea. Um, this is the climax of the Exodus story, right? And here, in most translations, we don't have any translation of the meanings of these place names. We just have Pihachirot and Migdol and Baal Zephon, right? And so when we see when we see these place names just transliterated, we don't have any meaning for them, right? But Pihachirot, this is like this indicates that there was some sort of choice, that there's through some sort of choice going on here, and Migdol could be some sort of tower or sense of greatness, right? Um, and again, we get this. Okay, we have this choice to consider. what is going on with this choice, and how is it related to the crossing of the Red Sea? Well, from the perspective of a of an egoist who wants to become closer to the quality of his creator, I need a big miracle to happen because I can't exit my egoism by my own power. It's everything that I am. It's like asking a fish to no longer be a fish. It's really some sort of miraculous input is needed here. But at the same time, I need to choose this path. I have to place myself on it. There's no miracle that's going to come to me unless I'm making efforts to achieve that greatness. Maybe there's something being implied by these place names connected to this effort. Okay, number three, Valtzafon. Okay, so another place name is this Valtzafon. Um, Baal is a master. Tzafon seems to be like a cipher, and and this, I mean, right in the previous passage, we reminded that Moses has gathered up the bones. He's taken the bones of Joseph, and he's bringing them with him up out of Egypt, just as Joseph made his brothers promise to do. And we have this reminder of the phrase that he surely will remember you. Well, they've been remembered, and now to keep this promise, the bones are being brought up, the bones of Joseph. And if we remember that Joseph was given a new name when he became the ruler of Egypt, um, was not Bneach, and and it had something to do with being able to interpret or decipher hidden messages, right? So maybe this Balzaphon, the master of the cipher, maybe this is another reference back to Joseph, who was just mentioned in the previous passage um, uh, when Moses is bringing his bones up out of Egypt. Okay, number four, the beginning of the complaints. This is incredible to me that you have this people who have been redeemed. There have been all these plagues, these miracles that have come to set them free, and in and now they're out and they're in their freedom, and they're out there with upraised arm. Yeah, we are free. And the very first ad, adversity that they encounter, they start complaining. Okay, rightfully they are afraid, but here here we see that, okay, they see that the Egyptian army is after them, and they start complaining. They said to Moses, is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you've taken us out to die in the desert? Right? And okay, if this was just one incident, okay, we could forgive them for being afraid. But we see it again with bitter waters. We see it again when they complain about not having water to drink. We see it again when they complain about not having meat or food. There's just constantly on Moses's case and constantly complaining, and it is as if they have failed to remember all these incredible things, all these incredible wonders and miracles that have just happened, that have brought them into this situation, and they fail to understand that there are more miracles to happen. But on the other side, it's their demand. It's their demand for survival. It's their demand for water, for food. It's also brings further miracles upon them. So there's this relationship between the complaints and the miracles. Number 5, on dry land. Okay, and raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and split it, and the children of Israel shall come in the midst of the sea on dry land, right? Ve'yavu b'nei Israel b'toch hayam beyabasha, right? So we don't see these words like Adama or Eretz, Aretz. We don't see this. We see this other word, Bayabasha, which it's interesting because we see this word used in the creation when the waters are separated from the dry land. And we see this word used during the flood story of Noah when finally there is dry land that's come back from the flood. And so the use of this word here connects this event back to the original creation and back to the refreshing of creation that happened through the flood, right? And so in this way, really the whole nation of Israel is being elevated up to the level of the original creation, back to Adam. Okay, number 6. The camps did not draw near to each other. So there's this angel, right? The angel of God, Malech HaElohim, okay? And it's been guiding the children of Israel, it's been guiding the nation of Israel in the form of a cloud by day, in the form of a pillar of fire by night. And now it's gone behind the camp of the nation of Israel and placed itself between it and the camp of the Egyptians. Here, and it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. And there were the cloud and the darkness, and it illuminated the night. So again, we have this darkness for the Egyptians and light for Israel. And one did not draw near the other all night long, right? And so again, this concept that these two camps are so opposite in nature of each other, right? That one, Israel Yashar Kel, wants to become closer, wants to go straight to its creator. And Mitzrayim wants to limit that tsar, wants to limit the capacity of this to happen because it wants to control Israel. It wants Israel to be a slave to Egypt, and because Pharaoh feels that he should be master of the universe and still doesn't recognize HaShem, despite all the wonders and the miracles that have happened, even though they are harsh and horrible to him. Number 7. Measure for measure. Okay. Now, the Torah never comes out and says explicitly that Hashem punishes man measure for measure. And what do we mean by this? That if we do something with our hand, that we get punished by the hand, right? We don't see anything like this explicitly written in the Torah, but we see a lot of examples of it. And here is a major example of it, right? That Moses stretches out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength, and the Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord stirred the Egyptians into the sea. Right, the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, entire force of Pharaoh coming after them in the sea, not even one of them survived, right? But again, the children of Israel passed, Bnei Israel, the nation of Israel, uh, went on dry land, right? B'yabasha, b'toch hayam. And here that we see that the Israel saw the Egyptians dying on the seashore or dead on the seashore. Um, so this concept of measure for measure, the Egyptians had, at the height of their cruelty to their slaves, the children of Israel, they were throwing their infant boys into the river to kill them. The river Nile, we suppose it never says the Nile, but into the river. And now we see that water and drowning is the way that the Egyptians face their final punishment. So that this isn't coincidental. It happens a lot that there's somebody who commits a cruelty or a sin in one way and receives a punishment that is, almost it happens by the same nature, the same element, uh, the same the same kind of thing happens to people who abuse others. And we see it a lot in Torah, and if we're careful, we can even see it a lot in real life as well. Number 8. Hashem is master of war. Okay, so immediately after this salvation, the children of Israel start singing, and they sing this song, and the whole song is recorded for us here in the Torah. And what's interesting here is this, to me, this line is quite interesting. The Lord is a master of war. The Lord is his name. Okay, well, Lord, again, remember, is the translation of the 4-letter name, which we pronounce Hashem when we're studying. And here in Hebrew, it says Hashem ish milchama, Hashem Shemo. And this can be very difficult to translate. It can be very difficult to understand because in Hebrew, we don't have the verb to be. There is no is or am. It's there, but it's often not used in most sentences. Many times we'll use a personal pronoun like who, for he, or she, which connects back to the gender of the original subject. So maybe Hashem, hu ish milchama would be very clear that it's saying that Hashem is, but there is no connection here. There is no to be verb here. So we got Hashem, man of war or man wars. Hashem is his name. We can assume that because Shemo is his name, right? This is a possessive that connects back here. So we can understand that there's a to be in here. But here it's very confusing. So is it that Hashem is the man of war, or is it because Hashem also connects back to his aspect of love? So what is it that the aspect of love would war against? The aspect of hate, perhaps, right? And we get a reminder of that at the end of this of this portion where we have the war against Amalek and the commandment to wipe out the memory of Amalek. So maybe there's something here, but it's something quite profound, and we should take a closer look at it. And it's something that can be easily confused and overlooked when we have just a simple translation like this, it really doesn't handle the complexity and the differences between the two languages. Number 9, Miriam spoke to them. Okay, here we have Miriam called out to them, sing to the Lord, for very exalted is he, a horse and its rider he cast into the sea. Okay, it's nice that they switched the grammar around so that they could make the couplet rhyme here, because it's the song, right? And Miriam, it's interesting here. She is the prophetess, right? She's Aaron's sister, but she's also Moses' sister, obviously, because Aaron is Moses' brother, right? And that's not mentioned here, right? So that is significant as well. And here's another interesting thing about Hebrew, that Hebrew has male and female plural pronouns as well. So they can be a female they or them, or it can be a male them. And so many times we understand that she's calling out to the women, but here it's lehem, which could be the men, or if it's a group of men and women together, they're always encapsulated by the masculine collective pronoun, which is common. I mean, it happens in many languages that way. Um, so, who exactly is she speaking to? She's speaking to the whole nation of Israel. Is she speaking only to the women? Here, contrary to what many commentators say, that she was talking to the women and the women are viewed as equal to the men in this situation. It's something where she's probably calling out to the entire nation, right? Beta'an lehem Miriam shir leHashem ki go ga'as usv'rechovo ramabayam, right? Okay, is there a problem with that? Well, maybe, because the very next problem, the very next complaint is the bitter waters. Now, if we take a look at this, Miriam, men, resh, you, mem. And we come here, we see that the waters were marim, mem, resh, yud, mem. They're exactly the same. So what is it that's embittered about Miriam? What is it about her communicating? She's a prophetess. She's communicating to the whole nation here, perhaps. And the very next thing is we have Moses is leading the nation of Israel away from the Red Sea, and they're out in the desert, and we have this situation with the bitter waters, and this identical spelling to his sister's name, and she isn't mentioned as his sister. So again, there's probably some sort of separation in quality between Moshe and Miriam, and this bitterness, and this second complaint that we see from the children of Israel after their miraculous salvation from Egypt. Okay, number 10. This is something that I noticed. It's quite fascinating for me that right away, um, after this bitter waters, or during this whole episode of the bitter waters, we see the combination of the letter Shin and Mem a lot. 340. Okay, 340. It's a numerical value. It's the numerical value of Shin and Mem together, and it's if we just take a look at the Hebrew text, okay, we see that the, this part of the text becomes dominated by these two letters. It's everywhere, right? So, um, so he's cried out to the Lord, and the Lord instructed him concerning a piece of wood. Okay, so the bitter waters are becoming sweet, and there he gave them a statute and an ordinance, and there he tested them, right? וימתקו המים שם שם ולא חוק ומשפט ושם ניסהו. But it's not done. ויאמר אם שמוע תשמע לקול השם אלוהיך והישר בעיניו תעשה והאזנת למצוותיו ושמרת כל חוקיו כל המחלה אשר שמעתי במצרים ולא אשים עליך כי אני השם רופאך. It's the letters, the combination of these letters, excuse me, they're dancing all over the text. I mean, it's highly, we don't see it quite like this all the time, right? In fact, here it is backwards, mishpat. I mean, there's so many combinations. There's so many Shin Mem going on in this tiny little area that it's suggestive, okay? And here is where we get into the world of gematria. So 340, what else is it equal to, right? And it could be a lot of things, but one thing that I saw was that it could also be connected to nitzar. So nitzar is to watch or to guard, to keep or observe, like a covenant, right? So if the test here is, hey, keep these ordinances and these commandments, I mean, maybe that's what's going on with this pounding like a hammer of a repeated usage of the Shin Mem combination here. Maybe it's telling us about this numerical value of 340 connects us back to Nitzar, which again, it could be some other meaning that's 340 as well. And this is where gematria comes into part of the other meanings that can be hidden inside the text of Torah. Anyway, and that's my take on that. Maybe you have another one. I'd really be interested in hearing anything anybody has to say about that letter combination, Shin Mem. In the meantime, that's all for this episode. Thank you. I hope you found it interesting, useful. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And until next week, be well.